Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness. This is episode 60. We hope our territorial acknowledgement improves allyship with Indigenous people within a reconciliation process. We're on the Haldeman Tract, located on the traditional territories of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge the presence and traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land. You are listening to Let's Be Well Together podcast, and it's John Webster here with Elise Siefert. Hello, Elise.
Hello, John.
I want to play a little game with you today because of a social media post I found.
Perfect. I love games.
So let me set it up. That's true. You do love games.
I do.
It's pretty awesome, the games you and Steven bring and show to us, and some of them are amazing, and we're enjoying them.
Great. I'm glad to hear that.
This one's a simple guessing game.
Okay. Still great.
Okay. So when I first moved out of the house, I was pretty young and I was living on my own. Mm-hmm. And I tended to wash my clothes, like wear them once and wash them, everything.
Right.
And I also, by the way, did that with my hair. Like I would get up every day and wash my hair.
Right.
And that's another show for another day. I don't do that anymore. So I started to realize you don't have to wash clothes every day.
Okay.
So if we want to be environmentally friendly, which we do.
We definitely do.
One of the things we can think about is saving water, preventing less detergent from going into the system and all that stuff. So the less you wash your clothes, the better.
Okay.
You got to wash them enough to keep them clean. Guess what? I found a social media post on Brightly on Instagram, and it says, how often should you wash your clothes? And there's 5 examples.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start with pants, dresses, and shorts. What do you think?
So is it based on days, weeks?
They base it on how many times you wear them.
Okay. So pants, dresses, maybe 5 or 6 times that you wear them?
For me, I think you might be right. I think it depends. So what the answer here is, and this is all just rough rules of thumb.
Of course.
It says after 2 or 3 wears.
2 or 3. Okay. I think I was thinking of pants, like my jeans, which you typically don't wash a lot. But my dresses, I wear a lot to my job, and I'm very physical, and I'm on my knees, I'm sitting down, I'm standing up. So I typically would wash those after just one wear if I'm wearing a dress to my work.
It makes sense. So, but I like this kind of rough rule of thumb, 2 or 3 wears for pants, dresses, and shorts. Mm-hmm. Okay, what about sleepwear?
Sleepwear, maybe 2 wears?
Yeah, that's what it says, 2 to 3. Now, I think that's right. But the other thing too is like some people, like they throw on their PJs at 8 o'clock.
That's right.
But they don't actually sleep in them.
Right.
And so if you're not sleeping in them, it's a bit different.
You might not need to wash as often. And I'm the kind of person who gets home and I put on my sleepwear immediately. I like to be comfortable. So I try to wash probably after 2 wears because I wear it maybe longer than someone who would just put them on when they're going to bed.
And you're probably cooking, and so you're a little bit hot. And
that's right.
That makes sense. Okay, what about underwear, undershirts, and socks?
I would say 1 wear.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I read another article about this at one point, which I might get to at some point. And I think what it was talking about a lot is what's the chances of generating things like bacteria, right? And so things like underwear, undershirts, socks, you're in your sweaty areas, you're probably going to have bacteria. So those are the ones you want to wash after every wear.
Definitely.
Okay. For some reason they had pants, dresses, and shorts separate from tops. What do you think about tops?
Tops, I usually do 1 wear.
Okay. And this one's suggesting after 2 to 4.
Okay. Interesting.
But again, I think we come back to, it depends what you're doing in it.
Definitely.
If I go to work, I work at a job where I sometimes wear a suit, dress shirt and tie type stuff. And if I'm wearing an undershirt and a dress shirt over top of it, and I'm not at all being physical, I can wear that shirt a whole bunch of times.
Right.
Right. But if I am wearing, let's say a sweatshirt and I go for a long walk and I sweat a lot, I'll probably wash it after 1.
I was the same way that you were. When I was younger, I would wear things once and then just put it into the laundry.
Right.
And I remember Mom having to have a discussion with me saying, you only wore these for half a day, my jeans or something. And she said, you do not need to put them into the wash after every wear. I mean, we're just wasting laundry. And I think at that time with 5 people in the house, who wants to do that much laundry if you're washing everything everyone wears every single day? So I think that opened my eyes to thinking about how many wears I could get out of certain numbers of clothing, which is important.
I think the main message here is we have to think about the environment and start to broaden our minds on different ways where we can help the environment. and thinking about how often you wash your clothes, how often you wash your hair. Like, so for example, I said maybe we'll talk another time. We're making good progress here, so I have time. I used to, every morning, just so that I could do my hair, which isn't very long, it's not very fancy, I would take a shower and wash my hair.
Right.
Just so I would brush it. And so now, like, I've completely changed. Now what I tend to do is when I wake up in the morning, I just take a washcloth and wet it.
Okay.
And I just wet my hair.
Perfect.
And then I just put in a little, can't remember what they call it when you put the conditioner in your hair, you don't have to wash it out.
The leave-in conditioner?
Yeah, I put a little bit of coconut leave-in conditioner in my hair. And I brush my hair. And so instead of using all that water, I use it only a little bit. And I also understand that it's not great to wash your hair every day. So I'm washing my hair a lot less. And of course, I work out regularly. So I'll go to the gym. And a couple times a week, I'll wash my hair.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a lot happier if I condition it regularly, but don't wash it as much.
That's right. And I love this conversation because it really focuses on the reduction aspect of reduce, reuse, recycle. I know a lot of conversations that people have surrounding those three kind of facets of environmental wellness is recycling. People love to talk about recycling and what they're doing to recycle, but I think reduction is also very important. So looking at how we can reduce our water usage or reduce our usage of different chemicals that are put maybe into detergents or shampoos, conditioners, I think that's a very important conversation to have.
The other thing about that too, I'm glad you mentioned it. A lot of people think of reduce only in the concept of using less.
Right.
But it's really important to squish up your stuff too. Like reduce the size of your containers before you put them in recycling, or reduce the size of stuff before you put it in the garbage. Because if you don't, I mean, it just goes straight. Let's say it's not recyclable.
Right.
And if there's a way to reduce something you're throwing in the garbage, that's great, because otherwise you're just making the landfill fill up faster and faster and faster.
Right. Especially something that might not break down for a very long time.
Right. And I know, like, it's pretty amazing, actually. We had some people come into my work.
Okay.
So my work, we have a partnership with Sustainable Waterloo Region, which is an amazing organization that helps businesses become more environmentally friendly, sustainable. And they arranged for the Waterloo Region waste management people to come in to talk to our firm. And so they're telling us, for example, what to put in blue boxes and stuff.
Right.
But they were also explaining how the landfill works, which is pretty sophisticated in our region. And it includes, like, once they fill up a certain spot, they actually close it like a container.
Okay.
And so if you're making that container fill up faster, then, you know, as generations go by, there's less and less space.
That's a great point. I don't think I ever think about what happens to my garbage after I just leave it on the curb. Because I don't see it and I don't think about it. So that's something very important for people to consider. I'm
pretty sure wherever you live, in your township or your region, whatever, whoever controls the waste, you can go on the internet, find a website, and there's really important information. Things like what you should put in the blue box and what you should not put in the blue box, how to separate things. Because another problem they told us about is for plastics, like plastic bags, for example. A lot of times what they do is they collect all that and then they'll sell it to a country like China. China will start to reject it. If it's got too much of the wrong stuff in the plastic bags or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
And not enough people are taking time to sort their recyclables before they put them in the blue boxes in areas where you really need to do that. And just think about the guy who's outside. Like if I watch the person who comes by for our recycling, he actually is separating stuff out.
Wow.
Right. So it's just common courtesy to help the guy by taking a few minutes to sort it out better at your end. So like we have a bag of a bunch of plastic bags. We fold our cardboard in a nice way. And we have one blue box that we keep mostly containers. And the other blue box has mostly paper, cardboard, and the plastic bags. So anyway, we can go on and on and on. But the point is there's lots of things we can do. The 3 R's are important. Don't wash your clothes all the time. You don't have to wash your hair as much.
And you know what? Not washing my clothes all the time will likely also help to improve the quality of my clothing items. So I know washing them sometimes can help them to deteriorate faster.
Love it. Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Today's interview is in the category of physical wellness, but for me, it also leans towards spiritual wellness. Many of us have bucket list activities we hope to do, and some of them touch our spirit. And for me, running Comrades is on my list. I knew nothing about it until I started listening to Marathon Talk podcast, and the hosts, Tom Williams and Martin Yelling, ran it one year. And hearing the sounds of the day and reading about it, including why it started, hearing from people who ran it, I'm entranced by Comrades. And today I speak with somebody who's been there, Fiona Leathan. Welcome, Fiona.
Hi, John. Great to be here.
So Fiona lives in North Shropshire, England. She works for the local authority, or the local council, in organizational development. She helps her staff with well-being, staff benefits, staff training and development. She's a coach in running fitness in her spare time, helping to run a local running club with approximately 130 members. Meeting Fiona was one of those moments of serendipity. I had wanted to try both parkrun and Comrades. I'd been hearing about them for a while, so I switched my long run day up in September 2021 to try a parkrun. I was running along and there was a person beside me running around the same speed, and I said hello, and it was Fiona, who was visiting from England. And I found out that not only does she listen to the same Marathon Talk podcast, but she ran Comrades. What an amazing coincidence. So Fiona, let me ramble on just for a couple minutes about the amazing race, and then I'll have some questions. I took this description from a South Africa tourism page. The Comrades Marathon between Durban and, how do you say that?
Pietermaritzburg.
Okay, Pietermaritzburg started as a tribute to the South African soldiers who lost their lives during World War I. Since then, it has become a South African long-distance running race of legend, and its popularity as an ultramarathon has spread around the world. Now, for me, I've read much about Canadian war history. I advocate for peace always, and I loathe war, but at the same time, as I wrote in Accidentally Well, I've read many books about the talent, hard work, and sacrifices made by Canadian soldiers that, among other things, paid for the freedoms and privileges that I enjoy. They make the world a safer place, and I remember their sacrifice. The fact that Comrades pays tribute to soldiers who made sacrifices and was organized by other soldiers trying to remember them, that just adds to the beauty and the aura of the race. Okay, so there's my long intro, Fiona. My first question to you is, how did you get interested in Comrades?
I got interested in Comrades in exactly the same way as you did, John. I listened to Marathon Talk, and I was listening to Marathon Talk back in 2011 as preparation for my first marathon, which was London Marathon. And it was that year that Tom and Martin took Comrades on. And when I heard their overview of it and the recording of the start, it just gave me goosebumps. And I knew that one day I had to be there.
So what you're referring to is, what they did is, I suppose they just had a phone or something and they just stuck it in the air and recorded. I think it was 5 or 6 or 7 minutes before the race started. And people were all singing together, the music, the atmosphere. I just had chills. It was amazing.
It was absolutely amazing. I think it's called the E060, which is the traditional song that they sing at the start of Comrades. And then there's the cock crowing. They play that through speakers, but that was the traditional start. And cannons fire, and then you're away, off you go. All that is 5:30 in the morning, so it's all dark. It's probably an hour before the sun comes up. It is just a real experience. And that's what grabbed me, so got me there.
Just in terms of some of the logistics, how long is the race?
So the race is 87 kilometers if it is an up run. The unique thing I think about Comrades is that one year it will be run in an upwards direction, and the following year it's called a down run. So it will be run, the route is reversed. A down run is 90 kilometers. It's just a slight variation in the distance.
And when you're talking about up and down, we're talking about elevation, right? Because it's a pretty hilly route and there's more uphill on the up run and more downhill on the down run?
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's hilly in either direction. There are 5 big hills that are monsters. They've got names of their own because they're so renowned, those hills. But there's a lot of other hills too. I think there's only about 3 kilometers that are actually flat in that race.
Yeah, it sounds like a beast of a run, not only because of the distance, but surprisingly, and we'll come back to this, you'd think it's impossible because it's like 2 marathons or more. And yet a lot of people say that if you can train for a marathon, you can probably do Comrades. That is, if you can do the qualifying time. But just before we go there, Tell us a little bit about the 12-hour cutoff, which is such an interesting aspect of the race.
Well, absolutely. So at exactly 12 hours after that cock has crowed to start the race, at the other end, there will be somebody there that actually fires a gun into like a starting pistol, I guess it is, but they will fire on the stroke of the 12 hour, they'll fire that gun. And at that moment, the finish line will be closed. If you're 1 second away, even in the finishing straight, you will not be allowed to cross that line. And at that moment when that gun, I've experienced this now because I've been there, but when that gun fires, the whole stadium goes silent. And those people that have run those 87 kilometers and didn't quite make it, it's just such an atmosphere as they just, well, you just see them, some fall on the floor to their knees. So, it's just, it's such an emotional time.
I can imagine. And for me, if I were ever to run Comrades, I do want to do it. I can imagine doing it after I retire, because that's probably the only time I could really schedule it all in, the training and the trip and taking in the sights of South Africa. So I will be one of those people trying to break the 12 hours, not somebody who's finishing in 10 or 11. I'll be somewhere between, probably 11:15 and 11:45 if everything breaks just right. So I can imagine not wanting to be one of those people. Why would they go silent like that? I never knew that.
It's just the finality of it, I think.
Wow.
It's the occasion of that race finishing. And half of the competitors in that race finish in that final hour.
Wow. So there's so many people just skirting that line. And the other thing too is I understand that the person who is closest to the finish line when they shut it down but hasn't crossed it, they get some kind of prize, or there's somehow they're renowned. They do.
I think they become almost as famous as the winner.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's probably what's showing on the news for the news cycle. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I also heard too that because South Africa was banned from participating in lots of Olympics and races during the time of apartheid, that it became kind of the most important sporting event, or one of them, in South Africa for a long time. And it still carries a lot of prestige. And so lots of people line the route and cheer you on.
Yep, absolutely. The whole route had people lining the streets. The noise was incredible. It's on television all day. And everybody's result, doesn't matter whether you're first or whether you're last or anywhere in between, is published in the newspaper the next day.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I heard that. They sit and watch TV all day. A lot of people have barbecues and family get-togethers and watch the race.
They do. They're on the side of the road with their barbecues, and apparently it's the one day you can ask anything of anybody and they will help you. I got offered an ice lolly, an ice pop, which I took. I was struggling with my foot at one point, and somebody actually helped me to take my shoe off. It was just, you could ask anything of anybody watching it, and they would just go out of their way to help.
That's amazing. Okay, so for you, what year did you run Comrades, and how long did it take you to train for it?
I ran Comrades in 2019. So I'd had, 8 years of looking forward to it after that I first heard about it on Marathon Talk. I was lucky because, as you mentioned before, you have to qualify and run a qualifying marathon to get into the race. I qualified in the Toronto Marathon in the October before. So I was lucky to get that under my belt early, and then I could relax a little while and start training again at Christmas time. I did 2 marathons in the lead up to it, and then the race, Comrades itself, is in June.
So you were doing marathons as part of your training for Comrades, like during the same training session?
Yeah, so my longest run on the schedule was 50K. So
right.
Yeah, so I had the London Marathon that year as well in the UK. So on that day, I ran 5K to the start of the London Marathon, and then did the marathon as my longest training run. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That did catch me by surprise. I have read a little bit about people training, and I would have thought you'd have to do these like incredibly long training runs. But I also know from experience that once you cross a certain mileage threshold, you kind of start damaging your body a bit. And then I heard that for the most part, if you're training like you are for a marathon and you run some longer distances, maybe I like the way that you did up to 50, then that's actually good enough, even though if you're going to run 87 or 90.
Absolutely.
You've got the training.
It's a little extra training on top of what you would do for a marathon, but it is not, I mean, it's double the distance, but it's not double the training. We build up by doing maybe a run on a Saturday and then a run on a Sunday, so that rather than having a rest day, we might do 2 hours on a Saturday and 3 hours on a Sunday, rather than going out and doing 5 hours on one day, just breaking it up like that. And the other thing with the training is actually I reduced the number of days a week that I train, because I went from typically 5 days a week to 4 days a week, because I knew my body would need that extra time to recover from the long time that I was running.
That makes a lot of sense. I tend to only run 4 days a week too. I'm a bit older and I want to just give my muscles a little more time to heal. If I'm running shorter distances, like lately I've been doing a lot of morning runs in the gym on a treadmill. If it's just like 5K, I don't mind doing that almost every day. But anything longer, I like to give myself time to heal. So let's jump to the day of the race. Now you're standing there at 5:30 in the morning, and did you hear that music and hear the cock crow and the cannon fire? And how'd you feel?
Absolutely. Everybody sings the Shows a Loser, the song. I took videos of it on my phone at the time as well. I'm getting goosebumps now just talking about it.
That's amazing.
In all honesty. And everybody is there for the same purpose. So there is just that amazing feeling about the whole thing. I was truly standing there not knowing if I could finish, because I didn't know if it was just the longest distance. And, and I truly did not know whether I would make that 12 hours. It was just an incredible atmosphere at the start.
You mentioned that feeling of everyone being together, and I've talked about it before about the London Marathon. Like, I've run marathons before, but that was special to me. I don't know what happened, but walking from this Greenwich train station to the start line and all the people there, and I felt like that too, that everybody was kind of there for the same purpose. It was a really uplifting purpose. Many people were there to raise money for family members or organizations that could use it, and it was super uplifting. And you've run London more than once. I'm guessing that there's even more of a kind of a special uplifting feeling with Comrades.
I would agree. I thought, like you, that London was spectacular. It was fantastic in that way as well. But when I went to Comrades, it was another level. So
now at the day of the race, you've heard the cannon go, you've gone off the start line. I'm imagining you had some ups and downs during the race, which happens in marathons. So if you're doing twice that, tell us a little bit about some of the ups and downs.
Well, I'd got my pace strategy planned before the race. I knew I was going to start slowly. I was going to walk on the hills, so just to keep my energy. And I left enough time to walk the whole of the hill that's called Polly Shorts. It is a steep hill. It comes near the end. I think there's only 8K left when you hit that hill. So I'd left plenty of time for that in my plan. Pretty much everything did go to plan for me that day. There's one area where there is a little flat. I said earlier, there's only about 3K of flatness in that whole race, but there's a kilometre, which I think is about 50K in. And it is at that point where, I don't know if you know about the buses that come along.
I did want to ask you about that.
They're like a sweeper bus. This is the bus where they try and persuade you to drop out.
Oh, I was thinking of a different bus. So you tell us about the sweeper bus, and then I'll ask you about a different one.
Okay. Yeah. So you see these buses, they're parked on the side, and these are for picking up people that are dropping out of the race. And they would tempt you, come and get on the bus. We can just take you straight to the end.
Why would they do that?
So when you're struggling, I was expecting it because I'd heard about this before.
Okay.
But when you're struggling, it might not be the thing that you want to hear. It's easier to get on and get a ride to the end. But on that place where it went really flat, and that was the low point. It was, can I do it? Can I really do it? Should I be getting on the next bus that offers me a seat? But that passed.
The problem is the timing. Like, people ask what the hardest part of the marathon is. It's not actually the last few kilometers to me, because at that point you can see the finish line. The harder part is if you're having it, like usually if you're having a good day, it's all good. But if you happen to be having a bad day, The hard time is when there's about, 7 to 10 kilometers left, because you're like, I'm feeling terrible. It's not going my way. And I still have this distance, and you don't have the finish line in sight. So I can imagine at 50 kilometers, you're like, oh my God, I'm barely over halfway. I still have almost a marathon to go. So that must have been really challenging for you to fight through that.
Well, yeah, I think I've got lots of mental strategies. I've run quite a few marathons before. And I always say, in a bad patch, try it for another 10 minutes. You can do this for another 10 minutes. And often then that bad patch does go.
For me, what I've learned is that I just have to remind myself, just keep moving forward. Like, as long as I'm not injured, and luckily I've never been injured during a race, but if I'm feeling like my legs aren't listening to my brain anymore, or I'm, for whatever, it's really hard to even explain why you feel like you're breaking down at that point. But if I can just keep telling myself, just keep moving forward, and you're right, good things happen.
That was my entire strategy, was that every step that I took would be a step closer to the finish on that day. I knew that I was likely to be in that last hour. I'm not an overly fast runner. I just wanted to keep going, keep moving forward. And that is exactly what I did. I did not stop for any kind of, they massage your legs if you ask, or you can stop at certain areas. And I decided I am not stopping for any reason. I am just going to keep moving forward because I need every minute. I don't know if you know, but as well as the 12-hour cutoff, there are another 5 cutoffs during the race.
Oh.
So you have to be at a certain point at a certain time in the race. And if you're not there, then they will stop you from continuing. So I had all these benchmarks in my mind. I needed to be at 18K by 2 hours 40. I got there at 2 hours 30.
Ooh.
I had 10 minutes.
Wow, that's close.
That was early in the race. By halfway, I needed to be at halfway in 6:10. I was there in 5:40. So I'd built in a little time by that point.
Good for you.
And then, towards the end, Polly Shorts, which is the hill I spoke about earlier, I planned to leave enough time to be able to walk the entire hill. The cutoff for that is 11 hours and 10 minutes. And I got there in 10 hours and 36.
Good for you.
I had these, and I knew what these times were that I had to be there. And, my race was over if I didn't. So I suppose that determination, I managed to pull from within and just make sure that I got there.
It's one of the best lessons about long distance running for me is you learn that you can do more than you think you're capable of doing. And that if you can push through those hard times, it's a real strength. You build confidence in life generally because it hurts. You really are pushing through. It really is a struggle. And yet we find out that we can do it, something that we didn't think we could.
And that changes so many different aspects of life as well. That can overflow into work life and your confidence generally in day to day. And I think, it's certainly affected me that way over the years.
We're running a little bit long, but that's okay because this is one of my favorite subjects. So I don't want to cut things off yet. So I just want to go over 2 or 3 more things. One of them is the other bus. From what I understand, they have what they call buses, which are large groups of people running together who are all trying to get a certain time, like maybe the 11-hour bus or the 11.5-hour bus. What I picture is that I heard that sometimes they sing together and they
do.
So what's that like?
That is amazing. They usually have one person that is leading the singing and then maybe 200 people all running together and then joining in with the chanting. And I certainly jumped on a couple of those buses on my route. I didn't stay with the same one all the time because we'd be maybe slightly different paces, but there would be times when I jumped on one of those buses, just joined in and just soaked up that atmosphere with them. And they certainly got me up a couple of those really big hills.
That sense of community that you felt at the start of the race, did it continue as you continued through the race, or do people start to get so tired you kind of forget and lose it?
No, it continued. People in Comrades, they have different numbers on their bibs. So you can tell from their bib how many times they've run Comrades. So it will have, if it's got a small number 3 at the bottom, that we know they've completed Comrades 3 times already. The highest one I saw was 47. Somebody had run Comrades 47 times. And it is so easy to talk to these people, and they're just so willing to talk to everyone as you're going along. I can remember speaking to somebody that had got maybe 12 Comrades finishes, and I was asking, is this Fields Hill? I just know that the first hill was Fields Hill, and I was so worried about it. It was maybe a 3 kilometer long hill, and I just needed to know where I was in relation to it, just to benchmark how I was doing, really. And I was chatting away, and he said, "Oh no, we've done Fields Hill already."
Oh, that's good.
And I was so relieved.
That's amazing. Okay, and then I guess just before I turn to the last question, and there's a question I ask every guest. For whatever reason, I picture this race as having a feeling of being mystical or spiritual in some sense. Did you get that feeling when you were running it?
Absolutely. At the start, with everything that goes on at the start, as I described earlier, and at the end as well. But something that Bruce Fordyce, I don't know if you've heard of Bruce Fordyce.
I have, yes.
But he's a 9 times winner. He said to me a couple of days beforehand is that on that race, what you will do is you will meet your own hero, and that will be you. That just rang so true at that time when I was going through that really dark patch, and I came out of it, and I thought about his words and just getting through that and carrying on. It was just really life-changing, I think.
I can imagine, because, you finish a run, and I've had some bad days running marathons. A couple of them were really bad. And when you think back and you talk about it, it's like, like it just went through this rough patch. But at the time, it's so hard. It's so hard not to quit. And there's all this self-doubt. And here we are with people who are, we're really together people that we can train for months and we can do all our training, and you think that everything's going to work according to plan. But still, running teaches you that it's tough and it's hard. And I really like that quote, that you meet your own hero, because when you look back, you're kind of the only one who knows what that was like and how hard it was. And you're not out there to get accolades from other people, but you can say to yourself, you know what, I went through that and I did it.
Yeah. And that's just how hard you had to dig.
Exactly.
To get through it. Yeah. Yeah.
For most of the activities we do in life, you don't know how strong that little voice in your head is that's saying, you can't do this. You can't do this. That is such a strong voice. Absolutely. And it's so hard to ignore, but you find a way through.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, we talk about many areas of wellness on our show, and we ask guests the same question at the end, because our theory is that with all these areas of wellness, we don't have time to foster all of them at any given time, so some go on the back burner. So we do a little bit of a mini wellness check-in. Are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if so, can you think of even one thing you can do to foster wellness in that area? Well,
obviously, I knew about the question, but to look at yourself in that way, yes, there is one thing. And it's around my work-life balance. Obviously, we work really hard while we're at work, and I've got a lot of activities going on outside of work as well. So actually, what I'm going to be starting to do by the end of March is to reduce my working time by 1 day every 2 weeks. So I'm just going to use my flexi. I'm still going to be working the full time, but I'm going to be doing 9 days every 2 weeks instead of 10. So I'm going to have that 1 day in which to address that work-life balance.
Okay, well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Fiona, I just want to say it's life every once in a while throws you this really fun, interesting coincidence and puts people together in an unexpected way. And I'm just so glad you were running beside me that day when I tried my first park run. And I really loved hearing about your experiences, and today you telling us about Comrades. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it was great to meet you too that day. And yeah, we certainly had so much in common when we started chatting. So yeah, it's been great to come and do this as well.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of The Adventures of the Starving Artist. Yesterday, I checked out a songwriter circle hosted by one of my friends that I met here at an open mic a few months ago. It was the first songwriter circle that he was hosting, so it was small, but it was mighty. There were 4 of us, and the way it worked was we showed up, we sort of shook hands and got to know each other and say hello, how are you, had some snacks, and then we just took turns shopping different parts of songs that we've been working on, or full songs that we'd finished, and just showing them to each other and getting feedback, stuff that we could consider changing or revising. It was neat. Also very cool to start to meet some other local musicians up here in Ottawa that are doing the songwriting thing and make some new friends, find some new places to go and shop some work that I'm doing and hear some cool stuff for inspiration. One of the songs that was showcased was by a guy named Ethan, and it was a really fun song. It had a sort of folk country guitar vibe to it. Lots of 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. And the lyrics were really fun. The song was actually a bit strange. It was about cannibalism. And I don't want to rip any of the lyrics off, but the gist of it was a story-based song. So Buddy hops on a plane to Transylvania. And, it's kind of bland, but not so bad for Transylvania. And on they go. And it ends up with Big Vlad being in the kitchen. I wonder what he's cooking. I wonder what he's doing. And the lyrics slowly develop so that, man, it smells delicious. What could that possibly be? And before you know it, there's a plate of stew in front of you. And, well, you're too polite to say no. So you dig in, but it doesn't quite taste quite right. And then on the story goes until you find out that Big Vlad's been, an interesting approach to a song. Not something I would have done, but very creative. And it was super catchy and really fun. He had written another one that really stuck with me. It was about slowing down, and way, way back here in the Starving Artist segments, I did a section about slowing down and just being in the moment and making the most of it. And he had a similar experience, but it was from a student of his. And so he wrote this song. It could be applied to more than just a teacher and a student, but that's where he was writing it from. And the whole gist of it was, slow down. You're going too fast. It's gone before you know it. You may as well make it last. And really great song. Some awesome lyrics in there. I really liked his writing. One of the lines was, there were so many good ones. It's hard to pick, but the one I'll share is, yeah, it's pretty rough. Sure, the water's cold, but it's not so deep. And I was like, whoa, that's a very nice way of saying that. That's all I've got for you today. Some new writing stuff, some inspiration, some feedback on some of my stuff from some other talented songwriters. Onwards and upwards. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We love our listeners and thanks for joining us. Please help spread the word about Let's Be Well Together podcast. Follow us and rate us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram at lets.be.well.together and let your friends know about us.
Move that body like we're meant to do.
Today we're talking about an amazing topic, a Couch to 5K program with Simon Phillips. And I met Simon after he ran a park run on a trip to Canada because Simon lives in Shropshire, England. And while chatting, Simon told me he coaches people in a Couch to 5K program, and I've always wondered how that works. So welcome, Simon.
Welcome, John. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast.
Oh, I'm happy to have you here. So how long have you actually been running?
So I've been running 20 years and probably the coaching 14 years.
Oh, that's amazing. And what got you into running in the first place?
Okay, so in my 20s, early 30s, I used to do a lot of motorcycle racing on the track and some on the road. And I decided, I'd entered the Isle of Man. So that is substantially longer races than I was used to. So I wanted to get as fit as possible. So I thought, I'll have a go at running. And just fell in love with running almost immediately.
Wow, I get exhilarated just thinking about motorcycle racing. I can't imagine how that must feel.
Yeah. And said with the Isle of Man, it's not the sort of place you'd want to make a mistake through lack of fitness or concentration. So hence the running.
It makes sense. You improve your odds of keeping control by being in better shape.
Yeah.
So let's see how much we can get through on a kind of a short interview about the program. Just tell me on a high level, how does the Couch to 5K program work?
Right. So basically the course goes from over 8 weeks, and it starts with a very simple run walk through to hopefully at week 8, a full run.
And how long are the early runs when you start off with the run walks?
So we start off with probably 2 minutes walking, 1 minute run, and do that 5 times as the first run.
So it's more in terms of time as opposed to distance.
Yeah, the emphasis is always on time rather than distance, because we want to give them a sense of achievement rather than pressure them into reaching any sort of arbitrary target.
That's a really smart idea. And does that mean you're doing it on a track or something? Because, obviously if you don't know how far you'll run, you can't just hit the streets and just end up stop somewhere.
Yeah, the first few weeks we are based at a rugby club, so we use their grounds, because as well, people's confidence with the running at the start isn't the greatest, so we like to keep people shielded from feeling anxious or that they might be jeered at or anything. So we base it at the grounds of the rugby club. That's
a really smart idea too. And then what's the build-up kind of look like? You don't have to get into too much detail, but just how did things progress?
Basically, throughout, we give them 3 sessions each week. One is coached. They basically repeat that themselves twice while they're away. And then the next week, we gradually build it up. So less walking, more running, and then all the way through to week 8, when hopefully they'll be doing a 30-minute run non-stop.
Are these kind of programs, are they things you could find if you did internet searches in terms of the timing and that kind of stuff?
Yes, there's plenty of Couch to 5K programs available and apps that you can download onto your phone.
And what percentage of people who start the program, roughly what percentage finish it?
Probably say about 2/3. The dropout usually is after a couple of weeks where people may have not had the motivation to do the full exercises on their own, and then they start to show that they can't keep up with some of the other people. But yeah, it's pretty high pass rate.
And from what you hear from the participants, what do you find that people get out of it? What kind of things do they say to you after they complete the 5K?
There's mainly 2 things. They normally say they feel a lot healthier, because most probably haven't done any exercise for 20 or 30 years. And also a bit of self-belief and confidence. At the beginning, most people have no confidence that they'll be able to run 30 minutes non-stop in 8 weeks. And we say, honestly, follow the program, build yourself up slowly, and at week 8, you'll be running 30 minutes. And the pleasure I get to see people, the happiness they get from completing it at the end is fantastic.
I can imagine. And so I've been running long distance for about 6 or 7 years now, but that was something I started late. And I can tell you for that most of my life, like after high school or whatever, the thought of even like I'd see a treadmill and the thought of being able to run for half an hour on a treadmill, it was like, no, that's not something I either can do or it'd be really hard. And I still to this day can remember that feeling of doubting and thinking of it as this arduous task. And now if I run 5K, that's because it's an easy day. Doing a quick 5K before I go to work. And what a change in life. It has been really rewarding for me. I didn't do this exact program, but I went through that kind of feeling, and it is an amazing feeling. Do you have any sense of whether people keep running after they're done the program, or they kind of do that and then they just move on?
No, we probably get about half join the club and carry on running.
That's
and
amazing.
There's been plenty of people that have then gone on to become coaches. And as we've said, we don't like to tell people that it's all about distance. If you're happy running 5K, brilliant. If you're not, if you want to go further, there's plenty of options available. And we have people now that have been on the Couch to 5K who've done ultras and all sorts.
That's what I love about it, because for me, the main message, and one of the main messages we're trying to get out on this part of the show, is just to incorporate physical exercise as part of your everyday life. And so, for example, if there's somebody who now just likes to get out and run 3K and 5K or run regularly, whatever that happens to be, and they're not worried about their time, and that happened because of this program, then you've done something amazing. So I can see how you'd feel good about it.
Yeah. And the group also because of the way they start, they end up in groups of people that are alike background and like ability. So they'll soon end up in groups where they may only run, said, 3 miles each time, or progress further if they like.
Yeah, because to me, like, being able to run 3 miles is an amazing thing. So if that's you're happy doing that, then I think it's a good way to incorporate it in part of your everyday life. Okay, well, thanks very much, Simon. I appreciate hearing about it, and thank you very much for being one of those people who's out there inspiring others to get physical. And I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you, John.
There's a thought popped up while running. A lot of times when I'm running, I think about being grateful to people who helped me on my wellness journey. It's hard to figure out exactly who is responsible for what, in the sense of who inspired you to do what. And in the end, I think there's many people. It's kind of a collective of things that happen to you over your life and people you meet over your life. So you can't really just zero in and say, this is the person who's responsible for all the good stuff. But certainly I can think of a handful that are really important, that if I hadn't connected with them, listened to them, that kind of thing, I don't think that I would have had the breakthroughs that I had. And in that group are the guys who do Marathon Talk, Tom Williams and Martin Yelling. And it reminded me today because I had interviewed Fiona, and her interview was earlier in the show. There was just so many interviews I heard on Marathon Talk. Anything from people who are running, for people who talked about nutrition, from people who talked about the importance of sleep, and just generally things that connect to wellness. And those were the kind of things I think that were running around my mind when I was trying to figure out what different categories of wellness are. And I'm just so grateful. Neither one of them know me. Neither one of them probably will ever know much about me. And yet they had such a tremendous impact on my life in a really good way. And even now, I'm still listening to some new episodes. And just for context, I think Marathon Talk started in 2010. I didn't start listening to it until 2018 in the fall. And I decided to go back to the first show and work my way forward. So I'm still working my way forward. And at a certain point, they stopped making the show. I think it was at the start of, it turned out to be just before I started my podcast. But more recently, I think they're up to episode 11 of kind of a new version of Marathon Talk. And now it's hosted by Dina Castor and Martin Yelling. I always connected, I think, a lot more with Tom. He's kind of closer to my age, and we approach things kind of in a similar way. But then again, it's always interesting to hear from the person who doesn't think quite like you and get their insights. And I listened to an interview of Martin on a podcast, I think it was called Bad Boy Running. It was Fiona, actually, who told me that it was there. And he said some amazing things that are really, again, helping me to figure things out on the wellness side and get a better understanding. And a couple things that he said, and I've heard him say this more than once, I think he said it on Marathon Talk too, the new version, that running offers you and gives you different benefits at different times of your life. And I think that's so true. And he often talks about running as being part of a overall fulfilling life. If you think just generally about it, maybe when you're younger, if you're a runner when you were younger and you're focused on results and pushing yourself as hard as you can and beating your speed and winning races, you can see how that could help you at a certain stage in your life. And then as you get older, you're running for a different reason that can fit into your overall wellness in a different way because you've changed, and it makes perfect sense. Anyway, I'm digressing because really it was more the gratitude that I was thinking of. I don't think that I would have had my understandings, wouldn't have written my book, wouldn't have started the podcast if I hadn't been listening to Marathon Talk for all those years. And I just wanted to say thanks. And I was really lucky because when I ran the London Marathon back in October, I went to pick up my bib number. There's this massive, kind of conference center. As I was picking up my bib number, I could hear a voice talking. And I'm thinking, that sounds like Martin Yelling. So I worked my way around and to the back, and he was giving a presentation on how to prepare for a marathon. And I had stuck a couple copies of my book in my knapsack on the off chance that I would see one of them there. And sure enough, I got a chance to speak to Martin very briefly, just enough to say thanks for making a big difference in my life. And I gave him a couple copies of my book, one for him, one for Tom. Who knows? Maybe he just brings it home and sets it on his counter and never looks at it, but hopefully he does look at it. And if he does, he'll see that I've mentioned Marathon Talk quite a few times because I appreciate it. And also he might see on the last page a sentiment that was directed partially to him and Tom. And here's what I say. Many people helped me on my journey. Family, friends, mentors, coworkers, colleagues, teachers, fellow students, teammates, doctors, nurses, nutritionists. People I don't even know helped me. They created books, articles, or videos that taught me valuable lessons. I hope that everyone who helps other people, even from afar, knows they have the gratitude of the people like me who are healthier and more fulfilled because of them. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin.
I like watching movies where actors kind of make fun of themselves. And they're not afraid to kind of make fun of themselves. So they play themselves and their goofy characters and everyone laughs. So I don't mind laughing at myself sometimes. I think it's a good thing. And I've been able to do that a lot lately because of some little innocent sweatshirt that I got for the marathon. Because Sheila and Alex like teasing me about it. I ran the London Marathon on October 2nd. It was supposed to be cold. And somebody had told me that there's kind of a throwaway clothes spot at the start. So what you can do is you put on your shorts and shirt because you don't want to be running in a sweatshirt. But if you wear a sweatshirt waiting because you're there for like an hour or more waiting to go, you can just toss it and they'll give it to a charity.
Right.
So I thought, great idea. I'm going to buy a sweatshirt. And then we were also visiting Alex's girlfriend, Veronica. We were in Wales, Swansea. And she said they had like a pound store. It's called the Pound Store.
Very good.
Everything costs £1.
Yep. So we went in.
I couldn't believe it. I found this really cool, nice fitting sweatshirt.
For £1.
For £1. And I couldn't really read what was on the front. You could tell it was just worn so many times it had faded. There was some kind of sports logo but it didn't matter because I was only going to have it for 2 days or something.
Right.
So we get to then the day of, it really wasn't that cold.
No.
And I decided didn't need it.
No.
And I wasn't sure how to throw it away. So I ended up just leaving it in my bag that you stow with them and they give it to you at the end of the race.
Okay.
So now I have
a £1 shirt.
But it's a really nice sweatshirt. And I like it too, because sometimes you want that look that's old and faded.
Right. So we got home and John told Alex this story and Alex said, it's probably from some girls' basketball team or something.
And yeah, which was very funny. So, but if I looked at the front of it and it did kind of look like a basketball. But why is he saying girls?
I don't know. It's because it was small.
Yeah, and then he said it was like
a high school or something.
He said primary school. It's probably from a girls' primary school. And I'm like, what the hell? You guys are making fun of me for being small.
Yeah.
So then I looked more carefully at the logo, and I could tell it was actually said volleyball.
Okay.
And I can't remember the name, but let's say it's like Black Forest Volleyball or something. And I'm like, I'm going to show you guys.
Yeah.
So I started hitting the internet to find out schools in Swansea named Black Forest.
And
I could only find out. And by the way, I do think it said girls somewhere on it.
It did.
And I could only find one.
I don't think it said girls on the shirt. You could actually see something.
I don't know. There's something about it, but I found there was one school there and it was a primary school.
He had a primary girls volleyball shirt. Is it volleyball, did you say?
Volleyball.
So now, sweatshirt.
Well, okay, but volleyball players are tall, right?
Yeah, volleyball players are tall. I mean, I don't know about primary volleyball.
But when I wear the shirt around the house, no doubt I'm going to hear a little bit about
It's very funny.
Nice shirt, John.
Nice shirt, John.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
And it's sign-off time. It's Sheila here with John and Elise. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello. I am just getting over a little bit of a cold, so my voice might sound a little deeper than it usually does. I have a bit of a cough that happens at night, so I'm not sleeping as well as I wish I was. But besides that, I've had a very busy week. We had a bridal shower this weekend for my son's fiancée, Amy, and that went very well. Very happy, and Elise was there. Hope you enjoyed it.
I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
It just ended. I mean,
Just ended.
there's still cleanup now.
Yes, lots of work to do. I also worked on Saturday night. So I've had a busy week and I would really like to get back into the routine of exercising, getting healthy, eating healthier, and getting outside. It was a bit of a little snowstorm this weekend. Not too bad, but I feel like I'm ready for spring.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get out. I want to bike. I want to walk. So I'm really hoping to do that. And what about you, John? What's going on with you?
That sounds great. Yeah, we're getting close. Like we're within a month of being able to bike regularly and be outside more. I've done most of my running on the treadmill this winter and I've liked it, but it'll be nice to hit the trails again.
I agree.
So talk a little bit about the physical side. Had a good week. I had tweaked my back the week before and I think that's done now. I also decided I think I was being a little too short on my runs in the morning. So because I was going to the gym a little bit more often, I wasn't doing the mileage I used to do. I think over time that my body started noticing that and saying, so I upped it a little bit and it worked out great.
Good.
Also, I've been yo-yoing a bit since I've been watching what I eat, 2 weeks of progress and 1 week falling back, but I'm trying something a bit newer this last week that's worked. So I'm just going to stick with it before I say anything more about it, but it's also been positive. So all positives for me this week. And
Great.
And again, Sheila, wow, I saw all the work that you did for this shower. It's incredible how much energy you have, and it all came together. So
it was fun. I really enjoyed this bridal shower because I tried to make it not like a traditional bridal shower. So everyone just kind of mingled and there was lots of things to do. So you weren't just standing around doing nothing. So that was kind of nice.
what about you, Elise?
Well, I am back to school this week, back to work because I'm a teacher. I just had my March break, which is like our spring break.
Yeah.
So I had a lovely March break. It was really relaxing, but I was completely out of my routine. So I hadn't been working out. I didn't really get outside that much. So this week, I'm just hoping to focus on getting back into my routine and getting back into school.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully everyone else has a great week, really productive. Hope you enjoyed the show and hope you join us again next week.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.